Now, we know that Power Automate is used to make flows, but what exactly is a flow? Well, that's what we are going to discuss in this video, so keep watching Tech Quantum and stay tuned. Now, in simple terms, a flow is a visual representation of any task. So every flow or every task has a trigger and has an action. So in simple terms, flow is a visual representation of any task. So every flow or every task has a trigger and an action. So for example, you can have a flow where the trigger is a tweet and the action is an email. So for example, you would like to create a flow that sends an email to your email ID every time someone tweets about your company. So in this case, the trigger itself is the tweet about your company and the action is the email to yourself. Now, another flow might be based on a click trigger. So let's say you want to create an automated task where you say, let's say, good job to all your colleagues. And instead of going through all your colleagues one by one and saying, good job, everyone, you can create a flow where the trigger is a click of a button. So when you click on a button and it can send a message to all your colleagues. Now, flows can also be based on time as well. So let's say if you have a task that you run every morning at 9 a.m. every time, when you move a file from location A to location B, for example. So the trigger here is not an automated event like a tweet or a click of a button. It's time based. So it's based on 9 a.m. every morning or whatever time you specify. And the action is, let's say, desktop file movement from location A to B. But for all of these three different types of flows, which again are ways to visualize a task, all of them have a trigger component and an action component. Now, flows can obviously have multiple action. So you can have one trigger, but you can have multiple actions that follow that trigger. Now, flows can also have very complex logic like conditions. So maybe you have a trigger, an action, and then based upon one particular condition, how that condition is satisfied, you might want to take an action A or an action B. Similarly, flows can also have loop as well. So for example, you might have a condition, and until that condition is satisfied, the logic goes into a loop and then goes into a particular action once the logic is completely satisfied. Now again, flows can also have approvals. You can have an approval system where after an action, something gets sent to someone else, and based on their response, different things can occur. Therefore, in a summary, you can have various kinds of flows, but each flow has a trigger mechanism and an action mechanism. We will discuss more about the flows in detail in our upcoming videos, so stay tuned.